having this day my horse, my sword, my lance, I was able to secure the prize under the judgment of the eyes from England and from that sweet enemy, France. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow members and most welcome guests, some relationships are epic love stories or amazing histories made up of many events, but nothing can compare to the tumultuous relationship between two countries, France and the United Kingdom. A relationship steeped in history and many other things too. Now, contrary to what most of you might be thinking, France and the United Kingdom spent more time at peace with each other or allied with each other than warring and fighting with each other. But when we actually were fighting together, boy, what wars were these? Gigantic conflicts spanning the entire globe, like the wars of Tolkien's of Games of Thrones. And some events stood out to be remembered for all times. 3 centuries ago, a muddy field in Fontenoy, Belgium. The lines of French and British soldiers are approaching slowly but surely. And the British officers march forwards and say, "We are the English Guards. Stand and wait for us. We're coming to get you. Please fire first." A French officer does the same and replies, "Messieurs les Anglais, tirez les premiers. Gentlemen of England, please fire first." History does not remember who shot the first shot. And at about that same time, 2 expressions crept up in the French and in English language. In the French language it was filer à l'anglaise, leaving like an Englishman. And in English language, taking French leave. The meaning is exactly the same in both languages. Leaving without permission. The soldiers of Wellington and Napoleon famously called each other, "Aux friends, the enemies, nos amis, les ennemis." And eventually their son met again on another battlefield. Planes are flying above your heads, and artillery is pounding, coming from ashore and from inland, as a column of British soldiers wearing kilts approaches a French roadblock. The British officer says, "The Germans are behind us. They're coming to get you." A moment later, the French officer replies, "We are the descendants of Napoleon's Imperial Guard. La garde meurt, mais ne se rend pas. The guard fights, the guard dies, but the guard does not surrender." And next to that roadblock, there was a sign that is forever etched in the history of both countries. Dunkirk, as a sacrifice of the French rear guard, enabled the evacuation of the Allied forces safely into the United Kingdom. So France and the United Kingdom do share a common history, it seems, but they most definitely do not share the same cuisine. This is something etched into the conscience of every single Frenchman down from a very early age. En Angleterre, they eat du pudding, de la gelée, pudding and jelly, and something even worse than that, baked beans. with sugar in them and not salt. Sugar in beans and not salt. Surely this means that the French and the British cuisine must be the polar opposites of each other. Well, let's take a step back and think for a moment, shall we? In France and in the UK, people plant things in the ground and raise animals, right? Mm-hmm. The climate of both countries happens to be the same as well, correct? Therefore, you might be want to think that what they're planting and the kind of animals that they have on both sides would be the same. And that is indeed true. Potatoes, wheat and apple grows in fields in Normandy and the West Country. Beef, chickens and sheep prowl the fields in Normandy and the West Country as well. Therefore, the basic ingredients of French and British cuisine are fundamentally exactly the same, right? Now, here's a funny story. Once upon a time, French peasants had a special kind of hate for one dish, grilled beef, because it stunk, smelled horrible. It was only something that this crazy Englishman would be eating over there in the encampment with Wellington soldiers. But 1 century later, every bistro and brasserie in France had one item on its menu: le steak frites, grilled beef, served with chips. A French national dish made in England. Steak tartare, it's another thing that we think is quintessentially French, but we need to kind of delve into the detail. The devil is always in the detail. It's raw minced beef served with onions, capers, and there's a very special ingredient that's added to the mix as well. Something that is so disgusting, so disgusting, that it has to be British. La sauce anglaise, better remembered as Worcester sauce. Now, if you look at the king of chef, Auguste Escoffier, he is remembered as a chef of kings and the kings of chef. And many of his most famous dishes, the crêpe Suzette and the pêche melba, were invented while he was working in the kitchens of the Savoy Hotel, 4 tube stops away from here, in Charing Cross. French haute cuisine, made in England. Now, as a Frenchman living in the UK, I'm standing in the middle of it all, and I'm trying to make sense of it in some respect. And it almost seems as if the common ingredient of Anglo-French cuisine and the common threads of Franco-British history are conspiring against me to turn me into something else. When I go on the continent, I speak and I think like an Anglais. These funny things about having dinner late at 7:30 or 8, it just seems so foreign to me nowadays. And the whole thing of kissing people when you meet them for the first time, even more so, I just like, whoa, what do you want from me then? But funnily enough, when I'm back in London, I do fail a crucial test of Britishness. The and H. 2 letters or combination of letters that, despite my best effort, I still don't seem to pronounce properly. So it therefore seems that I've become neither a Frenchman, neither a Britishman, but that all these common threads are combining to turn me into a Franco-Britishman. And after all, I say, why not? If the hippie that was Franco-British history can live in its wake, bilingual countries, lasting from shining sea to shining sea, oh Canada, terre des ancestors. All I can say really is we should push the conspiracy to the next level and have all these common threads merging together into something whose first name would be grandeur and last name together. La grandeur together. That sounds like quite a good plan to me.